hypothetical is this. Suppose that a legislator decided to vote in favor of something that was grotesquely unconstitutional. Something that we all knew was absolutely against those principles of our country and those principles that we uphold in that document. And suppose that person took the bill to the Senate floor or to the House and pushed the bill through, and whether he or she got it passed made no difference. Fact is that he pushed it through and he voted for it. Can we sue him? And the specific question was, and I'll give it a little more substance. The specific question was, if a senator were to vote for something atrociously against your gun possession rights, your rights to bear arms under the Second Amendment, and it was grossly unconstitutional, can you sue him? Can you tell the court, look, just like you can sue me for malpractice, can you sue that legislator because he's essentially committing malpractice because he's not observing the Constitution? As a matter of fact, even worse, he's breaking his oath to uphold the Constitution. I kind of had a similar question. I shared that to Pat, and this is right before I got into law school. I said, you know, if I had a Speaker of the House who wanted to pass a bill so badly, that she would create a 4,000-page document and give everybody 24 hours to read it, and who openly admitted that she didn't know what was in it, and she pushed it through, can I sue her for malpractice? The answer to both those questions is no. And there's a reason. There's actually a pretty good reason for that. When I heard the answer, because I've been waiting for years to ask that question to my law school professor. Ooh, I've got a great one. Suppose. And I asked that question, and he said, no, you cannot. And my reaction was, how is that possible? And I was kind of appalled, and I was, I can't believe it. How are we going to uphold the principles of our Constitution? How are we going to protect the Constitution if I can't even tell a judge, listen, Senator X, you're full of it, you're out of there? Well, the answer is actually pretty good. The answer is because it is not up to the judiciary to impose some sort of burden and threat upon our legislators so that they cannot freely debate their ideas before the legislative floor. And that's it. And I was like, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. And ultimately, the professor said to me, it is up to you, the people, to decide to vote that guy out. So if you've got a person who is legislating in such a manner that it is atrocious and offensive to the Constitution, then we've got nobody else but ourselves to blame. Which, although I didn't mean to come to this point in the talk until later, but I'll stop here to come circle back, which is why it's so important to be members of this group and to be members of any group that oversees and watches what it is that our legislators do. Whether you're liberal or conservative, the point is, it doesn't matter what your political philosophies are. Those political philosophies need to stay within the confines of the Constitution. It's only when you go outside of the confines of the Constitution, and whether it be your state constitution or your federal constitution, that becomes offensive and a threat. There is a lot of room within our Constitution to develop policies and to develop approaches to the problems that plague our nation without violating her. There is a lot of problems that will come if you violate her, especially if you violate her with impunity. So, the follow-up question was, and this is the same question that I had, is okay, so if I can't sue that guy out of the legislature, or I can have an injunction that says, you're automatically out of there, then how can I protect my Constitution? What do I do to protect the Constitution? And that is the question that Pat actually faced me with today, is how do we protect the Constitution of the United States and also the Florida Constitution faced with the fact that the judiciary isn't going to help us? And the answer to that question is, first of all, there's really only two times when I can think of when we're actually protecting the Constitution as a whole. Think about it. You don't always go out there and protect the Constitution. You actually rarely do. You protect the Constitution, when we talk about protecting the Constitution, we're talking about protecting certain portions of the Constitution. It's not the Constitution as a whole that we're protecting. There's only two situations when I can think of that we can protect the Constitution. One is in the time of revolution. If there were to be a revolution, and if there were to be a war, or if there were a foreign invader, which by the way, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to make that happen, then we are indeed protecting the Constitution as a whole, not just a piece of it. And then the second one is when we vote. Because if you identify somebody who really doesn't care about the Constitution, some Green Party candidate, for example, or some of the far left liberals on the Democratic side in particular. I only say that because I don't know of any Republicans that are so way out there as far to the left as many of the Democrats are. But if you identify any candidate that fits the situation where it becomes grossly obvious that that person is not interested in maintaining the constraints of the Constitution, then with your vote, you're defending the Constitution. And so again, we come back to the point of how important groups like these are. It is imperative that you educate yourselves, that you learn everything that you can about the Constitution, how it works, not just the federal Constitution, but the Florida Constitution in our case, but it can be any state, depending on whatever state you may be, and the relationship, the federalist system, the relationship between the states and the federal government, so that you can actually understand and share that situation with share that understanding with your friends and your neighbors, so that when we go in 2014 and we vote for somebody, we're not voting for somebody who will use the executive powers to invoke his agenda upon the nation. And that's really the bottom line. So when we talk about defending the Constitution, there's really only two ways, and hopefully we'll never see that one. But we see this one every cycle. We see this every 2 years. We see that in special elections. This is imperative. This is the most imperative thing that we can do as citizens, is to go out there and not just vote, but effectuate the result of that vote. Not just go in there and press your lever, but stay actively involved. Review the work of your legislators and make sure that they are doing not only the job that you think that they should be doing, but that they're upholding the bylaws that restrict the government and keep government in check. Because the moment we lose that, like our founding fathers oftentimes said, that's the moment that our system of government will be replaced with overt tyranny.